room buzzed with quiet murmurs, a mix of anticipation and unease filling the air. The Galactic Council Chamber on Elysium 7 was a breathtaking sight, its walls shimmering with holographic displays of distant stars and planets. Representatives from countless species sat in their designated seats, their forms ranging from towering insectoids to sleek, metallic beings. Among them, Daniel Carter leaned slightly forward in his chair, his hands clasped tightly together. His assistant, Laura Bennett, sat beside him, her eyes scanning the room for any hint of hostility or support. Daniel had been chosen to represent humanity after years of proving himself as a skilled negotiator. He wasn't flashy or overly confident, but he carried a quiet determination that made people listen. Today, however, he felt the weight of billions of lives pressing down on his shoulders. Humanity's colonies had been under attack for months, and no one on the council seemed willing to act. The Krylos Collective, a faction known for their aggressive expansion, had been accused of targeting human settlements, but their ambassador, Zarnak, denied everything. The council dismissed Daniel's pleas, calling it an internal matter best left to humanity to handle. Laura glanced at Daniel, noting the tension in his jaw. She knew this meeting could change everything. If he spoke too softly, humanity would be ignored again. If he pushed too hard, they risked alienating potential allies. "You've got this," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of conversation around them. Finally, the council chair, a towering, crystalline being named Valenth, called for silence. "We now hear from Ambassador Daniel Carter of Earth," Valenth announced, its voice resonating like a soft chime. Daniel stood, smoothing his suit jacket as he stepped toward the podium. All eyes turned to him, and for a moment, the enormity of the situation nearly overwhelmed him. But then he remembered the faces of the colonists he'd met during his visits to the Outer Rim, the families who had lost loved ones, the children who no longer had homes. He took a deep breath and began to speak. "For centuries, humanity has sought peace among the stars," he started, his tone calm but firm. "We have built bridges, shared knowledge, and worked tirelessly to coexist with our neighbors. But now, we face a threat that cannot be ignored." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Our colonies are under attack. Ships vanish without explanation. Entire settlements have been wiped out. And yet, when we ask for help, we are told this is not your concern." A ripple of whispers spread through the chamber. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others stared at Daniel with cold indifference. Zarnak, the Krylos ambassador, remained impassive, his glowing red eyes fixed on Daniel. "We have tried diplomacy," Daniel continued, raising his voice slightly. "We have presented evidence of these attacks, only to be dismissed. We have asked for justice, only to be told to fend for ourselves. Well, I stand here today to say that humanity will no longer sit idly by while our people suffer." Laura watched as Daniel's expression hardened, his earlier nervousness replaced by resolve. "If you will not act against aggression, then we will. Humanity chooses war not because we seek destruction, but because we refuse to live in fear. We refuse to let tyranny go unchecked." The room erupted into chaos. Some delegates shouted in outrage, while others clapped in approval. Zarnak rose from his seat, his form towering over the podium. "This is a grave mistake," he growled, his voice low and menacing. "You do not understand what you are challenging." Daniel met his gaze without flinching. "Then enlighten us," he replied. "But know this, we will not back down." As the council descended into heated arguments, Laura placed a hand on Daniel's arm. "That was intense," she said quietly. He nodded, his mind already racing ahead. Whatever happened next, humanity had just taken its first step into a new era, one defined by courage, defiance, and the will to survive. Months before Daniel Carter stood before the Galactic Council, humanity's troubles began far from the polished halls of Elysium 7. It started quietly, almost unnoticed. A small farming colony on the edge of human-controlled space reported strange activity near their outskirts. At first, it seemed harmless: odd lights in the sky, equipment going missing, animals spooked for no reason. But then the attacks began. One night, a distress signal crackled through space. The colony of New Haven, home to nearly 5,000 people, was under siege. Ships unlike anything seen before descended from orbit, firing energy beams that tore through buildings and fields. The colonists fought back with whatever weapons they had, but it wasn't enough. By the time reinforcements arrived, the settlement was in ruins. Survivors spoke of alien figures moving through the wreckage, gathering resources, and leaving behind only destruction. Captain Ryan Mitchell, commander of the human fleet's Aurora Dawn, led the rescue mission. When he saw the devastation firsthand, his stomach churned. "This isn't random raiding," he muttered to Lieutenant Emily Shaw, his second-in-command. "They're testing us." Back on Earth, Daniel Carter received reports of similar incidents across the Outer Rim. Settlements were disappearing, ships vanishing without a trace. Each report pointed to one group, the Krylos Collective, known for their ruthless expansion and disregard for weaker species. The Krylos had long been a source of tension among the galactic community, but proving their involvement wasn't easy. They denied everything, and without concrete evidence. The Galactic Council refused to intervene. Frustrated, Daniel decided to investigate himself. Accompanied by Laura Bennett, he traveled to the outer colonies to gather testimonies and examine the wreckage. What they found chilled them to the bone. Entire towns had been wiped out, their inhabitants either killed or taken. In one case, they discovered a child's doll lying amidst the rubble, its fabric singed and torn. Laura picked it up, her hands trembling. "These aren't just attacks," she whispered. "This is extermination." Despite the mounting evidence, the council remained unmoved. During a heated session, Daniel presented holographic footage of destroyed settlements and survivor accounts. Zarnak, the Krylos ambassador, dismissed it all as fabricated propaganda. "Humans have always sought to blame others for their failures," he sneered. "Do not drag this council into your paranoia." The dismissal stung, but Daniel refused to give up. He reached out to other ambassadors, hoping to build support. Some listened sympathetically, like Ambassador Sealra of the Valen Concord, who expressed concern about the Krylos' growing influence. Others, like the insectoid Zetherians, openly mocked him. "If you cannot protect your own, perhaps you do not deserve a place among the stars," one of them hissed, as weeks turned into months. Daniel grew more determined. He knew humanity couldn't face this threat alone, but he also realized something else: they might not have a choice. Back home, public opinion was shifting. People were tired of feeling powerless, of watching their colonies burn, while politicians debated endlessly. Protests erupted outside government buildings, demanding action. News outlets ran stories questioning why humanity tolerated such aggression. Daniel spent countless nights poring over reports, strategizing how to make the council listen. Laura often found him pacing his office, muttering ideas aloud. "We need to show them we're serious," he said one evening. "Not just words, action." Laura nodded thoughtfully. "And if they still don't listen, then we fight anyway," Daniel replied, his voice firm. "Because sometimes, peace has to be earned." Unbeknownst to them, their resolve was being closely watched, not just by the council, but by enemies and potential allies alike. Humanity's fate hung in the balance, teetering between diplomacy and war. And as tensions continued to rise, one thing became clear: the galaxy would soon learn whether humanity had the strength to stand its ground or crumble under pressure. The day had finally come. Daniel Carter stood at the edge of the platform, staring out at the vast chamber of the Galactic Council. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the circular room, their forms a kaleidoscope of shapes and colors. Some leaned forward in anticipation, while others whispered among themselves, clearly curious about what the human diplomat would say. Laura Bennett adjusted her notes on the podium, ensuring everything was in place, but she couldn't hide the nervous energy radiating off her. Daniel took a deep breath, his mind replaying the countless hours he'd spent preparing for this moment. He knew the words he was about to speak would change everything for humanity, for the Council, and for the fragile balance of power in the galaxy. As he stepped up to the microphone, the room fell silent. All eyes were on him now. For too long, Daniel began, his voice steady, but carrying an undeniable weight. We have turned the other cheek. We have asked for help, presented evidence, and pleaded for justice. Yet, our cries have been met with silence or dismissal. He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the chamber. No more. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Zarnak, the Krylos ambassador, shifted in his seat, his glowing red eyes narrowing as he studied Daniel. Other delegates exchanged uneasy glances, unsure where this was heading. Humanity has always sought peace, Daniel continued. We have built bridges, shared knowledge, and worked tirelessly to coexist with our neighbors. But peace cannot thrive when it is one-sided. It cannot survive when aggression goes unchecked. His tone hardened, each word landing like a hammer strike. If you will not act against those who threaten us, then we will. Humanity chooses war not because we want it, but because we must. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, some in outrage, others in disbelief. A few even clapped, though their applause was drowned out by the cacophony. Zarnak rose from his seat, towering over the podium. You are making a grave mistake, he growled, his voice low and menacing. Do you truly believe your species can withstand the might of the Krylos collective? Daniel didn't flinch. Instead, he met Zarnak's glare, head on. Then show us your strength, he replied, his voice unwavering. But no, this we will not back down. Not today, not ever. Laura watched the scene unfold, her heart pounding in her chest. She had seen Daniel prepare for this moment, rehearsing his speech late into the night, but nothing could have prepared her for the raw intensity of his delivery. The room felt electric, charged with both fear and admiration. Some delegates nodded approvingly, while others looked visibly shaken as the noise began to die down. Valenth, the crystalline council chair, called for order. Its melodic voice cut through the commotion, restoring a semblance of calm. Ambassador Carter, it said, its tone neutral, yet probing. Are you certain this is the path you wish to take? War brings consequences far beyond any single species. I am certain, Daniel responded without hesitation. We do not seek war for conquest or revenge. We seek it to protect our people and preserve the values this council claims to uphold. If we stand united against aggression, perhaps wars like this can be avoided in the future. But if we allow tyrants to act unchallenged, we doom ourselves to endless conflict. The chamber fell silent once more, the weight of Daniel's words hanging heavy in the air. Laura glanced at him, noticing the slight tremble in his hands up, sign of the immense pressure he carried. Yet his face remained composed, his resolve unshaken. When the session adjourned, Daniel and Laura walked side by side through the corridors of Elysium 7. Do you think they'll listen? Laura asked. Quietly, they might not, Daniel admitted. But sometimes, you have to shout to be heard. As they boarded their shuttle back to the Aurora Dawn, Daniel allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. He knew the road ahead would be dangerous, fraught with challenges that could tear humanity apart. But as the stars stretched endlessly, beyond the viewport, he felt a flicker of hope. Humanity had chosen its path, and whatever came next, they would face it together. Back aboard the Aurora Dawn, Captain Ryan Mitchell paced the bridge, his boots clicking softly against the metal floor. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. News of Daniel Carter's declaration had spread quickly through the fleet, and opinions were divided. Some crew members cheered the bold move, clapping each other on the back and talking about how humanity would finally stand its ground. Others weren't so sure. Lieutenant Emily Shaw stood at her station, staring at the tactical display projected above her console. It showed the positions of human ships, supply lines, and known Krylos territories. The dots representing the enemy forces glowed ominously, clustered near the edge of human-controlled space. She tapped a few commands, zooming in on one cluster. "We're not ready for this," she muttered under her breath. "What was that, Lieutenant?" Mitchell asked sharply, turning toward her. Emily straightened, clearing her throat. "Sir," I said, "we're not ready. Our weapons are outdated compared to theirs. If they hit us hardened, we might not hold out long enough for reinforcements." Mitchell frowned, his jaw tightening. He knew she was right. The Krylos Collective was notorious for their advanced technology, from energy shields to plasma cannons. Humanity's fleet, while growing, still relied on older designs scavenged and upgraded over decades. They had been playing catch-up for years, and now they were being forced into a fight they hadn't fully prepared for. "Do we have options?" Mitchell asked, his tone clipped. "Anything we can use to even the odds." Emily hesitated before responding. "There's the prototype plasma cannons. They've only been tested once, but they worked well enough. Problem is, we don't have enough of them to outfit every ship. And then there's the issue of training half. The crew hasn't used anything like it before." Mitchell nodded slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Get started on training anyway. We'll arm as many ships as we can and hope it's enough." Nearby, Intelligence Officer Nathan Cole listened intently, his fingers flying across his keyboard as he sifted through intercepted communications. His screen flickered with streams of alien text and symbols, most of which he couldn't decipher without help from the translation software. But one message caught his Aja-coded transmission between two Krylos vessels. It mentioned coordinates deep within human territory. "Captain," Nathan called out, swiveling his chair to face Mitchell. "I think I found something. Looks like the Krylos are planning another strike, and soon." "These coordinates point to Titan Station." Mitchell's eyes widened. Titan Station was a critical supply depot orbiting Saturn, stocked with food, fuel, and medical supplies. If the Krylos hit it, they'd cripple humanity's ability to wage war. "How certain are you?" he demanded. 70%, Nathan replied. "It's not perfect, but it's all we've got." Mitchell didn't waste time. "Sound the alarm? We need every available ship ready to deploy within the hour. Lieutenant Shaw, plot a course for Titan. Let's make sure they regret picking a fight with us." As orders echoed through the ship, the crew sprang into action. Engineers scrambled to prep the engines, while gunners double-checked their weapons systems. Morale remained mixed. Some were eager for battle, others terrified. Among them was Ensign Clara Hayes, a young navigator fresh out of training. She sat at her station, hands trembling slightly as she inputted the new course. This was her first real mission, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Laura Bennett arrived on the bridge just as the ship began to move. She had returned from Elysium with Daniel, who was now briefing the fleet's senior officers. "Think we can pull this off?" she asked Emily quietly. Emily glanced at her, then back at the tactical display. "Honestly, I don't know. But we don't have a choice. Either we fight, or we roll over and let them take everything." Laura nodded grimly. Outside the viewport, the stars blurred as the Aurora Dawn jumped to faster-than-light speed. Whatever happened next, humanity was stepping into uncharted territory and there was no turning back. The Aurora Dawn and its accompanying fleet arrived at Titan Station just in time. The massive supply depot, a sprawling complex of cargo bays and fuel tanks, floated silently against the backdrop of Saturn's rings. At first glance, everything seemed calm, but Lieutenant Emily Shaw's sharp eyes caught something on the radar, a faint blip, moving toward the station. It wasn't alone. Within minutes, more blips appeared, forming a cluster that could only mean one thing. The Krylo. "We're here, Captain. We've got incoming," Emily announced, her voice tense but controlled. "Looks like 3 cruisers, plus a dozen smaller fighters." Ryan Mitchell wasted no time. "Raise shields and sound battle stations. Arm the prototype plasma cannons. Let's see if they're worth the hype." He turned to Ensign Clara. "Hayes, Ensign, keep us between the station and the enemy. We're not letting them get close." Clara nodded, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She adjusted the ship's trajectory, positioning the Aurora Dawn as a shield for Titan Station. Around them, human ships formed a defensive line, their engines glowing brightly as they prepared for combat. The Krylos didn't hesitate. Their cruisers unleashed a barrage of energy beams, lighting up space with bursts of blue and green light. The human ships absorbed the initial hits, their shields holding for now. Emily coordinated the counterattack, targeting the lead cruiser with the experimental plasma cannons. When the first shot fired, it was like nothing anyone had seen before. A beam of superheated plasma tore through the void, striking the Krylo ship dead center. Its shields flickered, then collapsed under the sheer force of the blast. "Yes," someone shouted from the bridge. Cheers erupted briefly before the reality of the situation set in. The Krylos weren't done yet. Their fighters swarmed around, the human fleet, darting in and out like angry insects. Explosions lit up the darkness as both sides exchanged fire. The Aurora Dawn shook violently as an enemy beam grazed its hull. Warning alarms blared, and damage control teams scrambled to contain the breach. Amid the chaos, Nathan Cole monitored communications, searching for any advantage. He spotted another transmission. One of the Krylos cruisers was signaling for reinforcements. "Captain, we've got bigger problems," he said urgently. "They're calling for backup. If those reinforcements arrive, we're outnumbered." Mitchell clenched his jaw. "We need to end this fast. Lieutenant Shaw, focus all firepower on their remaining cruisers. Take them out before reinforcements show up." Emily nodded, relaying the order to the gunnery crews. The human fleet concentrated its attack, unleashing everything they had. Plasma cannons roared to life again, joined by conventional missiles and laser turrets. One by one, the Krylos cruisers fell, their hulls breaking apart in fiery explosions. But it came at a cost. Smaller human ships drifted lifelessly in space, their crews lost in the fight. As the last cruiser exploded, the Krylos fighters retreated, disappearing into the void. The bridge crew let out a collective sigh of relief, though the mood remained somber. They had won the battle, but the scars were evident. Titan Station's outer structures bore scorch marks, and several sections had been damaged beyond repair. Casualty reports began pouring in, painting a grim picture. Daniel Carter arrived on the bridge after receiving updates from the senior officers. His expression was unreadable as he surveyed the scene. "Good work," he said finally, his voice heavy with emotion. "But this is just the beginning." Laura stood beside him, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Do you think the council will take notice now?" she asked quietly. Daniel hesitated before answering. "Maybe, but even if they don't, we've shown them and the Krylos that humanity won't back down without a fight." Outside the viewport, the wreckage of the battle floated in silence, a stark reminder of the price of defiance. Yet amidst the destruction, there was also hope. Humanity had faced a superior enemy, and emerged victorious. For better or worse, the galaxy now knew that Earth was willing to stand its ground.